The General Ledger set of financial statements, Part 3, Distributed Accounts, is set up underneath the Distributed Accounts tab. And you can see here we have two columns, one for GL account and one for account type. This feature is basically used to distribute an overhead expense account to various sales departments when generating an income statement. To see how this works, what we can do is we can take a look at what is already set up. We can see here the first account listed is the 5760 account, which is your telephone expense account. This is an overhead account because many different departments within the company all use the same telephone system. However, when they get the bill for the telephone, they want to distribute the cost associated with using the telephone to their respective departments based upon what that department's total sales were, the dollars in total sales. So if we had other accounts, we could list them as well. If we had vehicle expense or insurance, and we can list many different expense accounts here just by going to the bottom of the list and just adding additional accounts. For our demonstration, we'll just leave it with the one telephone expense account. And if you notice, it comes up automatically as a distributed expense. Next, we need to identify which sales account we want these expenses, or in this case, the one telephone expense account, to be distributed to. If we look at the drop-down box, we'll notice that it only lists for us sales accounts with departments, because the idea is that the expense account is going to be distributed amongst all these various departments. And as you can see, we selected the 4 sales accounts that show up on the drop-down box. Now let's go ahead and see how this plays out on the income statement. We can go ahead to the General Ledger module and go to Print an Income Statement. And if you notice, there's an option here that says Distributed. We can go ahead and select that option, and then we can tell it to print. And of course, we left all the other default options on this print income statement form the way they are, and we let it print to the screen. And as we're waiting for this to come up, we can simply just sit here and wait. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, now taking a look at it, let's notice that we have one sale department as denoted by SALE. That's a department for the General Ledger called Sales. And then we have 3 service department accounts listed here, the 4000, 4010, and the 4040. Now if you take the total for each of these departments, for the sale department it's a total of 5634, and for the service department it's going to be the 1032 plus the 287 plus the 591, and those are the totals for each of those departments. And that is important because that's what the computer uses to figure out how to allocate the expense accounts that are being distributed. Now if we go over to page 2, we can scroll down and look at the distributed expense. And you can see it shows the telephone expense account that we had listed. And notice it does not show the telephone expense account underneath operating expenses where it normally would show it. Since it's distributed, it is broken out into its own area called distributed expense, and it attaches to it the department in which it's being distributed to. Keep in mind, there is no such General Ledger account called 5760 space sale, meaning with the sale department with it. That's created on the fly for this report so that the distributed expense account can be applied accordingly. So now we have a total of $17.49 being distributed to the telephone expense account for the sales department and $504 to the service department. These are prorated or weighted against what the sales were for these two departments. And if you remember, the sale department had a $5,000 worth of sales, whereas the service department had, I believe, less than $2,000 worth of sales, and so it got the lower amount of the expense attributed to it. And that's it. That's how you would utilize an overhead expense account and distributing it to however many departments you want. And that concludes the distributed expense account feature located within the Setup General Ledger Financial Statements Distributed Account tab.